Welcome to Frankly, My Dear, the podcast that explores just how bananas things were in classic Hollywood. Classic Hollywood was wholesome, right? People talk about the films with such nostalgia and wish for those days back. But what I find more interesting is the seedy underbelly, the backstory, the movie trivia, the backdrop of those films and what went on behind the scenes. These were real people. They had their own stories. They soldiered on to create these films that you so love, and I appreciate even more now by knowing their lives and struggles. So join me as we uncover the mystery and peel back the velvet curtain of classic Hollywood to not just highlight the scandals, but the triumphs of these film giants. Welcome to episode 1 of Frankly, My Dear, Classic Hollywood Was Bananas. I am your host. My name is Kristen. I am a classic movie expert. I am also an author, and I run Hoofers and Honeys, LLC. I also have a website where I write classic movie articles. So this is episode 1. I've been wanting to do a podcast for a very long time, and I just felt like it was time. I write biographical fiction. I have written books on Judy Garland, Lana Turner, and I'm currently working on a Carole Lombard book. I also write paranormal romance, but it is historical. So I'm focusing on trying to give some of these actors their happy endings. So for instance, I wrote Fang Me Tender, which is inspired by Elvis Presley and his romance during Viva Las Vegas. And he's a vampire. So my point with that series under Elvira Frey, that pen name, is to take these actors who had more tragic endings, maybe didn't really get their happy ending, and try to give that to them. So I'm actually working on a Carole Lombard inspired paranormal romance there as well, given the tragedy of her. That is a little bit about me, and this first episode I wanted to just give you an idea of what the podcast is going to be about, as I said, who I am, and just kind of go from there. My first love of classic film came from musicals, and I attribute this to my dad. So I was homesick, and this was the 90s, and he brought home Singing in the Rain, the VHS tape. He borrowed it from a coworker, and I was hooked. From there, it spiderwebbed into other movies with Gene Kelly, his movies, Judy Garland, and then his movies with Frank Sinatra, and everything just branched out from there. And that is where my love of all of this started. I have been running my website and classic movie stuff for a few years now, and this is something that I really wanted to do. Episode 1. We are going to talk about Russ Columbo. Now, if you don't immediately know who that is, don't feel bad, because I didn't know who that was before I started researching Carole Lombard either. So he is very interesting. He was a violinist, he was a singer, he was a songwriter. He gave all the indications that he was going to make it big. He was on his way. He had just done a movie called Wake Up and Dream, and he was getting there. Okay, everything was set up for him to be a big deal. In the vein of Bing Crosby, Russ Columbo was a crooner also, and they kind of manufactured this rivalry between the two of them. They both sang at the Coconut Grove, which Carole Lombard frequented along with other celebrities in LA, and he was up and coming. I think that he would have been a big deal had he not had the freakiest freak accident and died at 26. There was just so much going for him, and it all fell apart in a day. He was also dating Carole Lombard. Rumor was that they would have gotten married, and things might have changed completely. So it is really interesting to me that all of the things that have to line up for some of these things to happen. Like, and Carole Lombard were seeing each other, and he, honestly, some of the stuff I've read about him, he seems very intense, borderline obsessive about her, because he was so passionate and so in love with her. But again, it might have bordered on obsession, because Carole was a very strong personality. She maintained this best friendship with William Powell, who she was divorced from. She and William Powell continued to date after they got divorced. They called it quits on their marriage before the full damage could have been done. So they stayed friends, and she was not giving up that friendship. While she and Russ were dating, she actually left, or didn't, either she left his birthday or didn't see him on his birthday in favor of going to hang out with William Powell. So there was an issue there. So that could have fed some of Russ Columbo's anxiety about her, and he had her followed. So there is that issue, and I'm not glossing over it, but he had been seeing somebody before that. Her name was Hannah. And she had actually professed like super deep love for him, and then all of a sudden turned around and married somebody else. Russ Columbo probably didn't understand Carol Lombard and William Powell's friendship, and it irked him, right? So it seemed like they ended up working out some of that. And then just tragedy. What happened was his premiere for Wake Up and Dream was on a Friday night. It was August 31st, 1934. And Carol came, and then his super close friend Lansing Brown came. And so what happened was he didn't get a chance to talk to Lansing about this movie that he did. He really wanted his opinion. Lansing was quite a bit older than him, kind of like a mentor. They'd known each other for 10 years. He wanted to know what Lansing thought about his performance. Because, again, Russ was trying to make a career for himself. So what happened was Carol was exhausted. She had just finished a film, and her doctor advised her, hey, take it easy, get away, that whole thing. So she was planning to leave for that weekend. And then she was going to go up to Big Bear, and then on the Monday, she was going to go to Santa Barbara. But this other thing that happened, the day before the movie premiere, Russ's mother had a heart attack. And she was in critical condition. He didn't want Carol to leave, but he understood that he needed to stay there. So Carol left Saturday, September 1st. Russ tried to get a hold of Lansing, but he was a photographer. He had something going on that day. Russ didn't get to see him. That night, Carol had a weird feeling. She said later that she should have come back. She said she almost turned around on the drive up there Saturday morning because something felt weird, but she brushed it off and she went. So Saturday night, she was uneasy. She felt kind of strange. She also mentioned that the 3 weeks before this, she and Russ had felt like something was hanging over them. Something felt weird, whether it was a premonition or who knows. They didn't feel right. They felt off. So the plan was Carol was supposed to come back Sunday night. They were going to have dinner, and Russ was going to drive her to Santa Barbara, and she was going to continue her vacation and just chill. So Russ didn't get to see Lansing on Saturday, and this was just like eating away at him. He needed to know what Lansing thought. He needed this. So he went over there on Sunday, and he had told Carol this on Saturday when they talked before she left, that if he couldn't get a hold of him, he would go over there on Sunday. So he went over to Lansing's, and Lansing had these Civil War era dueling pistols that they assumed were not loaded. Carol said that they had played with them before. They would stick their fingers in the barrels. They would look down the barrels. Terrible idea, right? Terrible idea. But they thought they weren't loaded. And again, these were, I'm going to call them kids. These were kids in their 20s. And they were just playing and just assuming that everything was fine. So nothing ever happened with Carol there. Then Russ goes over there that Sunday. And Lansing, I am going to actually read his testimony on this, because it's super duper weird, and I need to find it. Oh, here it is. So this is Lansing Brown's description of the accident, because we're leading into Russ's death here. And this is what he said. I was absent-mindedly fooling around with one of the guns. It was of a dueling design and works with a cap and trigger. I was pulling back the trigger and clicking it time after time. I had a match in my hand, and when I clicked, apparently, the match caught in between the hammer and firing pin. There was an explosion. Russ slid to the side of his chair. So he accidentally shot Russ Columbo. The weirder thing was, I mean, first of all, why would you light a match on a gun? Like, that description of it is weird, but he was not found to be at fault. It was found to be an accident. which coincides with what happened because he didn't shoot him point blank. No. It was weirder than that. So the gun fired, the shot ricocheted off a table in this room and hit Russ in the face. So it hit just above his eye and went through his brain. From what I've read, if he had been hit somewhere else, he probably would have survived. But because of how that hit him and it went right in there, they took him to the hospital. They tried, but they couldn't save him. So all of a sudden, this guy who could have been something huge was gone. Just all of the circumstances that had to line up for that to happen is just staggering to think about. So first of all, Carol was gone. Otherwise, she said she would have been with him. It wouldn't have happened if she wasn't gone. She was convinced that it was meant to happen, that no matter what, he was going to die that day. Because again, just because of all the things that lined up. For the fact that it bounced off of something too, for the fact that it shot at all and was loaded, the fact that it bounced off a table and hit him, and the fact of where it hit him. Like, all of that had to line up, and it's just so crazy to think about, and now nobody knows who he is. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, if there are people out there that know who he is, but he was very talented. He wrote songs for Wake Up and Dream. He had written one of the songs for Carol. It's just so, the freakiest of freak accidents belongs to Russ Columbo. That should not have happened, and it did. Now, it's not to say that he's the only one that had freaky accidents at the time. There are plenty of weird stuff that happens, right? Other celebrities that I'm going to talk about as well, but it's just crazy to think about what would have happened. Who knows? He could have, I'm gonna say this, and all the Bing Crosby lovers, I mean no offense. He could have been bigger than Bing Crosby. We don't know. The rivalry was cooked up, really. They didn't really have a huge thing, but it's just crazy to think about the possibilities, and he was just so young. As I said, they were just kids. And then Carol got taken so early too. It's just really weird to think about. So I wanted to share that with you and hope that you learned a little bit about Russ Columbo. I will probably do a follow-up on him as well. I do have a biography, the only biography that was written about him I have coming to me today, but I needed to get some studio time in today and wanted to get this out. So I hope you enjoyed this. I am open for guest stars on my podcast. I do have some interviews coming up, both with classic movie experts and authors. Some of them are both. So I wanted to have this be the intro, and kind of on a somber note, but again, Hollywood was bananas. So I hope that you enjoyed this episode, and I will be back soon. Thanks.